Um, so the first thing that I started playing that people didn't get to hear, that if they're just tuning in right now, is State of Grace on Jeff Lorber. And that was something that I listened to. It was in all my playlists for years, and that song is still there.
So that was PCH, I think.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And then
I guess it is.
Yeah, and then the song that was other song I was playing, but now I've never known whether I should say Airto or Airto.
Airto.
Airto is the correct way.
Yeah.
Airto. And you played with Airto for 20 years or more.
Yeah, I started in 2000. I started in 2000. Geez, I started in 1987 with them.
Wow.
Yeah.
So before we get to that, okay. Let's talk about everything you're doing right now, because I've seen on your Facebook you've been posting things that you've been doing. We were talking about earlier this afternoon when we were doing the test, what you're doing with Celso and the other, I forget the other people, but you've been doing some recordings, and it looks like you're all performing live together.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about what you're doing and the kind of lessons and everything that you're doing currently.
Okay. Well, that's the singer is Claudia Vilela. She's a Brazilian singer. I think she's originally from Rio de Janeiro. She's actually doing another interview like opposite this.
Really?
So she won't be listening. But yeah, she's a great Brazilian singer that I met. I don't know, we met a few years ago, but we just sort of started working together the last couple of years, and she's great. And Celso is kind of her partner, and he's a great Brazilian drummer. I met Celso way back doing a record with Flora Purim called The Flight, and that was on Fantasy Records, and it was a Fantasy record. The session was a Fantasy also, but Celso was the drummer on that record, so that's when I met him. Anyhow, we've been I basically produced a couple of songs with videos with Claudia as the feature. I also did another one for a local artist, Julie Capilli, called Let's Face the Music and Dance. But these two, and Dan Robbins is playing bass. So basically what I did was, Claudia said, let's do bluesette. I said, okay, how do you want to do it? You want to do it as a jazz waltz or as a samba? So I don't know. Decide, you decide. So I picked a samba, and I picked a key that I thought would be good for her, and she goes, "Oh, that's too high." And I said, "Well, it sounds good, so let's do it in that key." She goes, "Okay." She didn't pull the girl singer thing on me too much, which was great. So basically, I come up with an arrangement. I pull a drum loop up. I come up with an arrangement, and I lay the keyboard parts down. I just lay that down, and then come up with arrangements, and then I'll send it to. Usually, I think the order has been drums have gone on after the bass, but sometimes the bass goes on after the drums. Both of them want to hear. Both of them want to be last, but it doesn't really matter. It's usually pretty grooving by the time it gets to the bass player, and then so basically what you do is, I get the sort of skeleton track together, and then I send it out to them with a click, and they record it and they record their part in their studio at home. Like Celso's got a full-on studio. He's got Pro Tools HD and everything, so his drums sound fantastic. And Claudia has a nice mic, and everybody basically records on an iPhone the video, so the audio is tight. It's synced because it's like you're doing a record. You're playing to a track,
right?
So there's no delay. It's not. We're not trying to play together. That doesn't happen. It can't happen. They haven't worked that out yet. They've tried,
right?
But it just can't happen. So then the video, I put it all together in Final Cut Pro, and which I've just learned to use, which is a a major time sucker.
Right.
But this is a good time because time is one thing we've got a lot of.
Well, I wanted to ask you because on Tuesday nights we do this tech talk thing where people call in and talk about what we're talking here, and somebody was asking how you get those 4 people or six people showing up on a screen. Is that something you can do in Final Cut?
It is, but you need a plug-in, and it's called Screen Splitter. There's a few of them, but there's a few Screen Splitter programs, and it's kind of involved. You start with this thing called a multicam clip. You take all the videos and you dump them in the I forget what window they call it, the browser window or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Then you select all the cameras, videos, and the audio, and it combines them all together in this thing called a multicam clip. I mean, you drag that to the timeline. And then if you want to do a split screen, you have to take whatever section of the timeline you want and then copy it like as many times as you want split on top of each other. And then you have to choose a different camera angle for each part. And and then you put the screen splitter on top of that, and that takes one like corner, and then you decide where it's going to be in the picture. As you move it, it goes around the thing, and then so you put each angle where you want to put it. It's an involved process. It's not all that easy. Just go, hey, I want to split everybody into 4, and boom, it happens. I wish it was that easy, but maybe somebody out there can tell me an easier way to do it. But that's the way I do it.
Well, it's interesting. When somebody sees that, they don't really understand there's hours of putting that all together.
That's true.
And I think that there is an app, and I've seen singers use an app called Acapella.
Acapella, yeah.
Have you messed with that at all?
Well, the thing about acapella, you can't do what I'm doing on that because you have to use. You can't put multiple pre-recorded videos together. You can only have one and then record on that top of that, and record on top of that, and record on top of that. So you're basically recording on top of a video that's already there, and you have to use your iPhone or iOS device. You might, they have like really nice interfaces now that you can, like some of them you can tell they have pretty good sound, but you can't you can't really do like studio drums, studio bass, what my tracks basically sound pretty much like a record.
Right.
If you listen to those tracks, they sound nice and they're cool and they're neat and everything. But most of the time, if there's a drummer, it's a drummer in a room with an iPhone microphone.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when you put it all together, then you create the MP4 or whatever it is, and then post that onto Facebook.
Yeah.
So you're hearing good audio quality, and you're not hearing. A lot of musicians have this idea that, hey, we're playing together in all these different places and we're streaming it, and
no. I'm basically making a MTV video and putting it on Facebook.
Right. Yeah. So that whole process, we were talking this afternoon, and now because of how I'm doing this, I can't show it without getting rid of you.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to show it, but I'm going to tell everybody, go to Gary's Facebook page or YouTube, right?
Yeah, you go to my YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Gary Meek Jazz. That's my channel.
Yeah, and you can see all of those, and including the one that I posted on my Facebook page earlier, the Bluesette, right? Yeah. So this is one thing that I didn't know about you, other than I watched you play piano on one of those, one of the songs that you did, with the 3 people. What was I'm in Love, or what was the song?
Oh, A Time for Love.
A Time for Love. And I didn't realize that you were as good a piano player as you are, because I always thought you were this phenomenal sax player that I've listened to for a gazillion years, and here now you're playing piano equally as well as you play the flute and sax.
Well, I don't know about that, but
Well, to me, it sounds.
I get the illusion of being good. No, it's I played piano. I started on piano. I've played piano all my life. I don't have the sort of like uh, technical facility that I do on the saxophone. I can't, I can saxophone. I feel like I can do almost anything. But piano, it's like I'm good, but if you listen to a guy like Mitch or
Oh,
Billy Childs or somebody like
right.
that, that's a whole other level. That's a guy who's been you know playing their whole life and doing that. I've been playing my whole life, but I haven't been a piano player my whole life.
Yeah.
So I sort of I've always done it though. I mean, I played keyboards with Jeff Lorber. I played in his band. I played that song you played, Struck by Lightning. That's me on keyboards.
You
yeah,
played keyboards on that?
yeah, played keyboards on that whole record. I couldn't afford a real piano player. Yeah, I played piano with Airto and Flora. My first gig was in 1986, playing second keyboards with Dionne Warwick. That was one of my first road gigs.
Holy,
Yeah, I didn't play saxophone on the whole gig.
what? But you were playing sax then, but you got the gig as a piano player.
I got the gig as a piano player because a guy named Pat Coyle, I don't know if you know Pat Coyle,
Yeah.
Nashville guy. He used to be my neighbor. Uh, he used to live in the house behind me, and he got offered the gig. He didn't want it, so he offered it to me. I wasn't doing anything, so I said, "Sure, why not?" And so, there I am. And well, deja vu.
Right.
Yeah, and it was crazy. All of a sudden, I was on the road playing keyboards with Dionne Warwick, and okay, that's fine.
In 1986.
1986. Yeah, I was 25.
Jeez. And so you throw out Pat Coyle for jazz musicians. Pat Coyle was didn't he go to North Texas State and or something like that? But
Yeah, he was from Dallas.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then I remember him from playing on Woody Herman's. I think he played on that record that won a Grammy, at Woody Herman record. I think Pat Coyle was playing on that.
it's possible. Carmen McRae. I think now he's working with Michael McDonald.
Yeah.
But he was. I think his roommate in college was Lyle Mace.
Oh, yeah. See?
Yeah, so they were buddies. But Pat was like way far above me in the music scene when I lived in L.A. He had but and I was just like a whippersnapper. But I think he could see that I was I had some talent and so he offered me the gig and I got it. I only did it for about a year, but it's just you talk about the keyboard. The keyboard thing has saved my ass a bunch of times. I played keyboards with Al Jarreau in 1980.
No, really?
Yeah, 1997 for about a year. I played saxophone on that too, but it was mostly second keyboards. Neil Larson played all the Rhodes parts,
Yeah.
and I played basically everything that wasn't Rhodes, which was brass, strings,
All the parts.
yeah,
Yeah.
basically all the parts. Yeah,
And did he take live horns with him then?
not it. I was at the very end, sort of like at the last hurrah of
Mm,
when he
mhm,
was trying to play all that highly produced stuff. Uh,
mm.
but yeah, we had like 14 people on a bus that was on a tour bus, so it was pretty crowded. uh,
Gee.
but it was fun. We Michael Baker on drums and Andrew Ford on bass, Mike Shapiro on percussion, this guy Charlie Johnson on guitar. uh, I don't Charles Icarus Johnson. George Duke called him Icarus, I think.
Mm.
And I can't remember, but it was a long time ago, 1997. I can't
You're
believe it.
right. So this is the thing that I'm just thinking from. I'm just a musician growing up, a
Mhm.
fan of all these people, and now here you are playing piano with people that, and I'm thinking of you as a sax player. I'm like, and then when
I
did
am.
right, I know, but I'm going, you already as a sax player playing with guys that I've been listening to forever. And so what was your first, and then I'm hearing you're doing all these other cool gigs with other people that I respect as a piano player. I'm thinking, wow, right? As just a fan
No.
of music, I'm going, that would be really cool. And how did you get your first gig then playing? What was the first gig you played sax on and with?
Other than just local gigs around town and stuff, the first sort of real gig was they all a lot of them kind of happened at once. I used to play in Greg Carukas's band
Mm-hmm.
back in Los Angeles. Greg, he's kind of like he's had a lot of success in sort of the smooth jazz arena, but he's a very good keyboard player, and he did a million sessions,
Mm.
done a zillion records. I think he's won a Grammy. But anyway, I used to play in his band, excuse me, back in LA, and we did like kind of the coolest LA club gigs. So I got a lot of visibility that way. Uh, I think he got me a gig with Alphonse Mouzon.
Whoa.
It was you know who Alphonse was?
Yeah.
He's gone now, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I ended up doing a lot of work with Alphonse, playing on a few of his records and doing some tours and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that was kind of my sort of like first bigger gig as a saxophone player. Through him, Jeff Lorber actually saw me playing with Alphonse at we did this big gig at the Forum. Remember the fabulous Forum where the Lakers used to play?
Right. Yeah.
There was a big gig there. We were on it, and Jeff Lorber's band was on it. Dave Koz was playing with him at the time, but Dave was about to, I think, sort of take off on his own, and Jeff was going to need a new guy. So he saw me, and he liked me. And also, my old friend, a guy named Mark Schulman, who plays drums with Pink, of all people now. We went to high school together, but he was playing with Jeff, and he knew Jeff, so he kind of gave Jeff my number, and Jeff, oh yeah, I saw that guy with Alpha, yeah, he was good. So Jeff called me. I went over to his house, and he put on a track. I played about 8 bars. He goes, "You sound great. You got the gig." It was literally like that. So, and then I ended up. I started a relationship with him. It's I don't know how many records I've been on of his. 10.
A bunch.
Yeah. And so Alphonse Mouzon, Jeff Lorber, and then I think Airto and Flora sort of happened all in that 2-year period. And that was sort of my, first real jazz gig was playing with Airto and Flora.
And that record that I was playing to start with, that was the fusion stuff that I was really into at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to play just a little bit of this from that solo part, I think, again, just so people know what I'm talking about. Let's see, let me get this, because I mean it's
Struck by lightning.
Yeah, I mean, that solo was the way you play, and it sounds it's recognizable to me, because what I hear there is the way when I was talking about the Dave Weckl recording that we were live, very live and unplugged, or
live and very plugged in.
Live and very I never get the name right.
Well, the big thing at the time was, MTV Unplugged. I think that was like the big thing. So he was kind of like, well, we're not. We're very plugged in.
Okay.
If you want unplugged, don't buy this.
Okay. So
Yeah.
so I'm listening to the way you're playing, and I'm going like, yeah, that sounds like you. That's what I know of when you play, and I so it's recognizable to me. And so that was in 88 or 89?
Maybe 1990, I think, is when it came out. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in the 80s, that's what was going on in Los Angeles. Was like it wasn't really quite smooth jazz as we know it today.
Right.
It was kind of more like what they called. in a new adult contemporary was what they called it, and it was kind of it was a little it was different, like before the wave, like Quiet Storm and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Then it all got kind of watered down, and the whole thing sort of changed. I'm not sure why. It might have just been because of the way they did programming. They did away with PJs, and it all became like focus groups and computer programs, and this is what they want to hear. This is it had nothing to do with what people really wanted to hear as much as what focus groups and models determined they wanted to hear. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
people actually started writing music to fit that format, and it kind of, in my view, kind of degraded quite a bit,
Mm-hmm.
in the '90s and after that. Some people kept on. Jeff made some music to fit into that format, but he also kept writing really cool funky grooves.
Right.
And it was always fun to play with him, because when we played live, he was just like, whatever, man, go play, flow, it was loud and funky and fun, and we had some hilarious times on the road with the Jeff Lorber groups.
Yeah. Who were some of the regular band members in that group with you?
Uh, it started off, let's see, it started off with that guy, Mark Schulman, and
Mm-hmm.
Alec Milstein. Alec Milstein was kind of like his regular bass player for a while. And, but later on, there was a group that was probably the funkiest group, in my opinion. It was with Nate Phillips, guy from Oregon, Portland.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he lives in LA now. Funky man, and Sergio Gonzalez on drums. Who, I don't know. I think his last sort of major gig was Jennifer Lopez, but he's uh, super funky. So him and Sergio, and then Paul Pesco played guitar. Paul Pesco's been on a billion records. You just Google him, and it's like you'll find him. It's like
Right.
a pop guy. He's like a Paul Jackson Jr. type of
Mm-hmm.
those kinds of credits. Fantastic rhythm player, good soloist. Um, he had was it Daryl Hall had that show, The Living Room, the Daryl Hall's Living Room,
I, I
something
don't
like that.
remember it.
The Hall and Oates guy, but
Mm-hmm.
Paul was like a sort of like a guest host of that. But anyway, so that band was really funky. It was Jeff Lorber, Nate Phillips, Sergio Gonzalez, and Paul Pesco, and myself. And you know, we also, that was also the band that toured with Herb Alpert on his Second Wind. He did a record called Second Wind, and we all, you know, went on the road together and played with him. So that's how I became
Wow.
friends with Herb.
What was that like? That like meeting Herb Alpert, because he was the Tijuana brass guy when I was a kid,
Yeah.
and so he'd already had this group. What was it like working with him?
He was also the A in A&M Records, So he's amazingly successful guy, but just totally down to earth,
Mm-hmm.
sweatpants, we would go rehearse basically, but it was so, he liked everything relaxed, so we rehearsed, I think, for 2 weeks before we even hit the road. And everything was taken care of, first class, copying on all the music, I needed my racks. I had some rack gear, at the time when we used to be able to take rack gear on the
Mm-hmm.
road, and it wasn't really like up to snuff. So their tech guy just like fixed it all up, and I said, well, I can't afford to pay you, so don't worry, we'll take it out of your first check. So that's fine. So they just fixed everything up, and I don't even know if they took it out of my first check. It's like it didn't,
Yeah.
didn't matter. But the money thing was never an issue. We flew on private jets a lot, and he's still doing that with his band today. That's just the way he is, and
Mm.
I don't think he makes any money touring. I don't think it's possible the way he likes to do it, but he doesn't need to. He's made his money elsewhere, which is
Right, and he's probably just wanting to enjoy himself and play.
plus he's a super cool guy. He's always willing to help out people, when they need it, and also, uh, he's rigorously honest with his opinion. If he doesn't like something, he'll tell you. No,
Mm.
no, I don't like that, man. It's not. It's like, ooh, you show him something, you think it's great, and it's like, it's kind of boring. He
Yeah,
doesn't hold back with his opinions, but
that's
yeah.
funny.
Anyway, yeah. So Jeff and Herb hooked up because I guess Herb wanted him to produce some songs. Because Jeff is like the producer guy.
Uh-huh.
And he did that record called Second Wind, and Jeff sort of like brought his band in on it. I was in Jeff's band. He probably wasn't even going to use a saxophone player, but since I was in Jeff's band, I got the gig. And I could play some keyboards too. I could play some second keyboards too, and there needed to be some other parts covered. So that's another time where the second keyboard thing has come in very handy.
Yeah, yeah. So along all of that, playing with on the road with Jeff and Herb and all those things, were you doing other sessions and other recording things in town, or
Whenever I could, yeah.
yeah?
It was tough when I was out a lot because out of sight, out of mind. People just don't call you, and it wasn't like if it was today, it would be a little bit different because everybody's got a cell phone and with unlimited. Back then, you couldn't be just like staying in touch with everybody from everywhere in the world like you can now.
Right.
Now it's like you somebody calls me, it's like, hello,
Yeah.
are you available Wednesday? Let me check. No, I'm not. I got another session. You can do that instead of, no, I'm in Japan. I won't be back for another 2 weeks, and after that, I'm going to South Africa. It's like if you were going to be home for a window of a couple of days or something, you can actually book work now. But back then, it was a lot harder. So some guys managed to do it better than others, but for the most part, the guys that did all the sort of in-town studio work mostly stayed in town.
Yeah.
And the guys that were on the road were on the road. That's one thing I learned about being on the road is being on the road does not get you more studio work. You might get a record date here and there from somebody who hears you and says, "Hey, you want to play on my record?" But you're not going to get hey, I got a movie date. Hey, I got a jingle. Hey, I got this. You know what I mean? You're not going to get those calls because as soon as you aren't available for one, they go down to the next guy on the list, and he's the guy they call.
Right.
And that was the way it worked.
It is, especially in the 80s, 90s, and
Yeah.
maybe early 2000s. Today, however, because of technology, like you were saying, it's possible to book a session and just record it at your house and send the WAV file.
That's right. Yeah, I was mentioning Brian Bromberg just did a Christmas CD.
Yeah.
And it's not done yet, obviously, because I just did my part. But it's called, Celebrate Me Home, the Holiday Sessions. And I said, what are you, Scottish? Shiver me timbers. So, yeah, well, whatever, But if he's watching, I don't know if he's watching, but he said he might try to tune in. But
well, Brian Bromberg is another guy that when the first record of his I bought, he was a kid playing this really funky electric stuff, but he's an amazing upright player. I mean, great reader jazz upright player, right?
Oh yeah, to me that's his home. Just virtuoso upright playing. I mean, he's an amazing electric player. Of course, he can do all the pyrotechnics, and he's great groove and funky and all that. But when he picks up an upright, he's truly in his own category. It's just like not even his own category. He is a category. There's nobody that sounds like him. Period. You hear 2 notes. Oh, that's Brian. It's like one of those kind of guys. And his ears are amazing. He just follows you wherever you go. And so you don't ever need to. Well, we've played with each other for 30 years now. I don't think we've ever gotten off, either one of us, while playing together.
Wow.
It just doesn't happen.
You did a bunch of records with him, a bunch of
Yeah.
his records.
Hmm. And
Uh,
a bunch of records that he produced also
okay.
as a
And
side.
which includes the Christmas record that's going to come out this year.
Hmm. Well, that's actually one of his records. But but he produces records for a lot of different artists,
Hmm.
and if they need if they need a saxophone player, like if he'll produce a guitar player or something, and they want a sax solo, he'll call me unless the guy has a specific guy in mind, you know.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's just I ended up playing on a lot of records for Jeff Lorber that same way, and so usually you play on records because the either the composer, the guy who's making the record, or the producer, the guy who's producing the record. Usually that's how you get the call.
Right, right. Uh, so I'm just getting the timeline. So you were doing Airto, Jeff Lorber, and Brian Bromberg all about the same time, and
Yeah, all from the late 1980s till now.
even till now.
Yeah,
Um,
Dave Weckl came in around 2000.
yeah, and that's where I first really recognized you was off of that uh, live and unplugged. Very,
Very, very plugged
very
in.
live, very plugged in.
Don't worry about it.
I still,
You'll never, you won't get it.
I will never get it. I will never get it.
Just think of what you want to say and say the other one.
Right. But the way you guys played together on that was, that's the thing that really sucked me in, is how you all listen to each other, and it's now, as I find out all of the stuff you're playing, it's, man. Okay, now I got the name of the plug, so I got a list of your discography up now. So now I can read it and say it right, live and very plugged in.
There you go. Yeah.
Right.
For some reason, this you want to hear just a little funny Dave Weckl story?
Yeah, absolutely.
The very first gig we were on, we did this video in New York for the Drummers Collective. That's on a DVD somewhere, but that's not part of the story. Our first gig was in Philadelphia, and we're on the plane, and I realized that I had forgotten to bring the charts, and my wife had also left town, so she wasn't at home where she could get them to me. So I went to Dave on the plane and went, "Hey, so listen, man, I don't have the music, and I don't think I can get it." And he just kind of very calmly went, "Okay," and fortunately, most of the stuff was on computer charts, and so he was able to pull them up and print them out. They were kind of wacky looking, but they were the charts and they were the music, and he was able to pull them up and then get them printed at the hotel. And then I had to complete some of them in Finale or whatever music notation program I was using at the time. I had to complete some of them while I was in the hotel on the road, but we got them all together and I got them done. But it was like, okay, very first gig, I forget the charts. Good job. And it was kind of crazy, but he didn't trip. He was like, well, shit happens. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a relationship that goes on to this day. I played on his latest record, which is called I don't know if it's latest, but I think it is. It's the one he did with Jay Oliver called Convergence.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
that's a really cool record. I mean, they did a lot of really cool stuff. Like Jay Oliver wrote a tune for a Irish the Irish dance, river dance guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he actually went to Ireland and recorded the Riverdance guy playing, and so Dave is trading, he's trading fours with this Irish dancer guy. I don't know if you've heard it, but if you haven't, you should check it out.
I'm while we're talking, I'm going to try to load to pull some up on my phone.
Yeah, I can't remember what the name of the track is, but you can probably tell by, you know, yeah. And yeah, so that relationship continued. I still talk with Airto and Flora. You know, they're down in Brazil most of the time now.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, Jeff Lorber, same thing. We still talk from time to time, and I still do things for him, little things now and then.
So I want to ask you because you were doing all of that stuff, all of that fun jazz fusion stuff that I've liked and have all of the records except for Convergence. I don't have that,
Mm-hmm.
but I have it up right now.
Mm-hmm.
And um, so I know at some point you kind of said, I'm kind of over this. I'm going to move.
Mm-hmm.
And you moved to the Carmel, Monterey area, right? That's where you live now.
Right.
And when that was like 10 years ago or so?
Yeah, we've been here 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And,
And it was basically my wife Maureen has two kids from a previous marriage that live in Carmel. They're all grown up and married and stuff.
hmm,
And at the time, uh, that family owned the Carmel Sands Hotel, which was in downtown Carmel. So
hmm,
we could always stay there, for if not free, for nothing, dirt cheap, $10 a night or whatever for cleaning costs. And so we used to come up here and stay, and sometimes we'd come up here and house sit. And eventually, when there was a period of time where the shit kind of hit the fan in Los Angeles, the session scene just sort of died. I mean, there was hardly anything going on. Uh, you talk to anybody from that time period, it's like even the guys who were doing all the dates were just now they were like scrambling to try to get, you know,
that that was
Broadway
right.
shows or whatever,
Yeah, that was right around 2008 or something, though. Right around all that.
even before that, and it just kind of, yeah, yeah, 05, 06,
That whole,
anytime, yeah, and it just kind of like, whoa, all of a sudden there's no more jingle work. I used to do a ton of jingles. There would be horn sections. I would go, and Wayne Bergeron and Alex Isles or whoever would be doing horn section work. That just kind of died, and Wayne is so in there. He's still
right,
doing the film work and the Grammy bands and all that shit.
right,
And he's not having any trouble. Plus, he's like a superstar trumpet player. But
right.
for like the guy who, like me, who was mostly going on the road and just getting whatever sessions were happening, when could, that was all pretty much had all dried up. So it was like there was nothing going on except the road work. I could go on the road from anywhere, didn't have to be in Los Angeles. So Maureen, at one point, she said, I'm moving up to Monterey. If you want to come, you're welcome to come with me. It was literally like that. I'm like, well, of course I'm gonna go anyway, because where she goes, I'm gonna go. But at the time, it was kind of like, why not, man? It's like, I'm struggling here. If I'm going to struggle, I might as well struggle someplace really beautiful. You know,
Right.
I can see the ocean from my balcony. We have an apartment, in Pacific Grove. It's beautiful
Hmm.
place to live. I walk outside, I see raccoons and deers and giant cypress. That's what I see. You know? So, and I don't have to worry about. Well, nobody has to worry about rush hour traffic right now, but
Right.
I don't have to worry about rush hour traffic ever. Yeah, although we have our version of rush hour traffic up here.
Yeah. But you still now though after since moving there, you still get to be fairly involved in doing some recording projects and different things uh, with people,
Yeah,
even though you're there.
yeah. Well, the way technology is now, you can work from anywhere, and the same people that I knew 20 years ago, I still know. And
Right.
they, if they like me and they want to use me, and Jimmy Haslip is kind of producing some records lately. Over the last few years, I played on a couple of Michael Frank's records. Played on one with him, and one was a Jeff Lorber production. Played on Tom Kennedy's new record. A lot of stuff I'm doing from right here, literally right into this mic. But
What, I want to interrupt you for a second. Is that a KSM 32 or 44?
KSM 44?
44.
Yeah, and Dave gave it to me.
Really?
Yeah, many years ago, because he's a Shure guy.
Yeah.
You know? So he's like, "Come on, man, you need to do some mic here."
You know, one thing I got to say about Dave Weckl's albums and recordings is that sonically they sound incredible. You know, the drum sounds are great. They're produced great. All of the instruments sound great.
He's fanatical about that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're going to get it right. That's it. We're going to get it right no matter how long it takes. You know, it doesn't usually take that long, but you know, he wants what he wants. And he wants it right.
You know? Yeah.
And I found that to be actually rather liberating in a way. It was kind of like, you know, all you have to do is play correct, you know, and everything is great, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And usually if it wasn't correct, it was me. I would know it was me. It's like if something was wacky, you know, it would almost never be him. It would pretty much most of the time be me, you know. And you know, I learned a lot about you know, just being super accurate. I've always been a stickler for accuracy myself. So that's probably why we hit it off. The same reason, you know, Brian, I hit it off with Brian too, because Brian is very accurate. He likes to be very accurate. All the 16th notes are where they're supposed to be, you know.
So as you're saying that, I'm kind of thinking, Dave's time is impeccable. I mean, it's you know, unwaveringly. It's like it never floats. So I'm sort of understanding what was earlier jazz records. There was a time when stuff floated a lot, right? Time
it still does. It depends on who's playing, you know. I played, you know, my last record. I don't know if you have my last record. It's called Originals.
I don't have it loaded up.
Mm-hmm. But that's got Terry Lynn Carrington on it, and Brian is playing bass, and that, you know, the time is definitely a lot more elastic, you know, but it's swinging like a big dog.
Yeah.
And so it's different. It's just a different type of energy, you know, and they're both great, you know. So you should check out that record. It's really good. Randy Brecker's on 3 cuts. Bruce Foreman is on 3 cuts.
And Bruce is fun. Bruce is pretty funny. Okay, Originals. I'm getting it right. I'm going to get it up, and we'll play something with you know, I showed a picture of all my devices. I've got like 2 iPhones, an iPod, and 2 iPads, and a computer. And everybody's, "Why do you got to have all that stuff?" Well, there's a reason. You know,
probably still have an iPod. I haven't even heard that mentioned for a while.
Well, an iPod is basically an iPhone that can't be an iPhone.
That's right.
It's a wannabe iPhone.
Right. Yeah, I mean, my iPhone's got like 250 gigs of memory. I mean, it's stupid, you know.
Okay. I've almost got it. Okay, so Originals, and what should I play something from that?
Play the first cut. Play What Happened to My Good Shoes.
All right. I want to take it out so I can, bringing me back to the days where you would go to a club and you would listen to the band and a solo and you, it's like, yeah, yeah. I
Right.
mean, I miss that.
I know.
Oh man, I really do miss that because it just doesn't happen like that anymore. And great solo, Randy, great solo, man.
Yeah, we had fun, man. It was like, that was actually kind of the feeling that I was after. I remember like, there was a time when you could actually walk in off the street and see John Coltrane, wailing on stage, you
Right.
know, and that was good, man. No matter what, that was fucking good,
Oh, yeah.
and it's like if you can reproduce, not that I'm John Coltrane, but if you can reproduce something that's really burning and you listen to Terry and Brian and Mitch, I mean, they're
Yeah.
cooking, and I'm just riding on top, and it's great. Like you felt like going like that after my solo, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that was the feeling that I was after, and the whole record kind of has that spirit. It's really that's by far my best artistic effort was that record. So hopefully it didn't get this. Uh, it got a good amount of airplay, and you know some people downloading, people are listening on Spotify and iTunes and all that stuff. So every time that happens, I get like a third of a cent.
Well, that could be a whole nother show talking about how,
That's true.
you
Yeah.
know,
And that's only because I own the record and I own the song. That's the only reason I'm getting a third of a cent. Ordinarily, it'd be like a tenth of that. Like the record company would be getting a whole bunch of.
man, you see, and we could talk about this
I'm not
forever about,
exactly. I'm not exactly sure of that figure, but it's something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
but there's an idea that music is free.
Hmm.
We just listen to it, and it's fine. I don't have to pay for it, but I
Hmm.
would say purchase this record on iTunes,
Yeah,
or or you can purchase it, I'm guessing, on Amazon, maybe.
you can get it. You can still get it on Amazon. Actually, I think you can get it on. Still get CD Baby. Still has a few. CD Baby is closing their store. I think
Oh,
they're
yeah.
going to all you know digital. My best return is probably downloading it from iTunes, digital downloads, if you can still do that. Most people will listen to it on Apple Music, which is fine. If you want
Well,
to do that.
this is why I bought an iPod,
Hmm.
because in order to really play all of my music, I need to purchase it.
Yeah, you
If
got to
I
have it
want
on
to go,
MP3. Yeah.
I have to own the MP3. Otherwise, I can't play it without Wi-Fi and all kinds of hoopla. But I want to be able to have an iPod that I can just play the song. So
Mhm.
there is a there are certain things that I won't buy, like a pop song that they need to know. But if it's music I want to listen to, I buy it.
Yeah, I know, and I like the fact that if I'm going to do a gig or something, and I have somebody who's going to sub, and they want to check it out, I just go, well, just go check it out on Spotify.
Mhm. I've bought more albums and whole records based on being able to hear one song and go, oh yeah, that's cool. And then it's just as easy to buy an album these days. $10 is like what, 9.99? Sure.
I know, I know. Yeah,
So
I think that first record that you played, like Struck by Lightning, that was actually released on vinyl in 1990. I think it was released in 90. That was like sort of like the end of vinyl, but they did make it. There were cassettes.
right, I remember that,
Yeah, yeah.
cassettes.
Car,
Yeah.
car stereos had cassettes in them.
So I looked at there have been consistent viewers and people saying things and asking Toby Simmons, is Gary local? And I'm thinking that she's thinking Los Angeles, but no. Well, you grew up in Encino.
I was born in Encino. I grew
Oh,
up in the West Valley Hospital at White Oak and Ventura. I lived 5 miles from there, in Woodland Hills.
okay.
Yeah,
And you've lived in the LA area until you moved up to Monterey Carmel.
correct. Yeah, with uh, a, a brief stay in Santa Clarita Valley.
Mm.
Canyon Country. I lived there for 2 or 3 years, but then I moved back.
Yeah.
But mostly I've lived in the San Fernando Valley
Yeah.
until
Well,
I moved up here.
you know, I I've been I love it's hard for me. I can talk drums like because I'm a drummer and I can get into stuff, but the thing that it's hard for me to express what a sax player would ask you.
Mm.
And that I a long time ago I did an interview with Johnny Adams at KRML. And I've told this story once before, but I did a big band record in 1992 or 3, and he had me come down for an interview. And he was starting to talk about sax players, and I have no uh, I, I have no ability to really talk in sax speak, if you will. So he said, "Well, it sounds like John Coltrane or whoever he said that the sax player sounded like." And so I thought it would be funny. I said, "Well, I'm a drummer and a band leader. I wouldn't really understand it." Thinking it would be funny, and and he didn't take it as funny, and it's just like the whole interview just kind of went. So I was thinking it might be kind of funny, but no. So forgive me if I kind of labor at trying to describe how I enjoy your playing, other than I can tell when it's you soloing,
Well,
you
Dave will say the same thing. He'd say, "I know drums and I know cars."
know.
You know,
Right.
you work out the rest of the music shit.
Right.
His ears are amazing, but he can have some trouble explaining it in musical terms. Other than rhythm, he's fantastic at rhythm, but
Right.
he never studied harmony or any of that kind of stuff. Didn't
Yeah.
have to, but he can hear it. I'll tell you that he can hear it if something's wrong. He can hear it.
Sure. I there's when someone like him spends so much time studying rhythm. I mean, just focus. And, you wouldn't really necessarily have to learn too much ins and outs of harmonics and stuff. But hearing it, sure, I can see that, or I can get a sense of, yeah, I can hear that should have been something different.
Mhm.
But the kind of guys that are that I can't do and I respect are like, yeah, maybe you should play that B flat instead of, that can just tell you the note you should play because it,
Joel Taylor. You know him?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's got perfect pitch. He can tell you
Oh,
what he's playing. So it's like he can tell you what key the song is in, and what
oh
chords
man.
are, all that kind of stuff. Hey, yeah, he's pretty amazing with his ears. Tom Kennedy's got perfect pitch too. He picks up he in that band with Weingart and Tom and myself. I was the only, besides Dave, I was the only one who didn't have perfect pitch. Both Steve and Tom had perfect pitch. I have really good relative pitch. If you play a note on an instrument, I can tell you what it is. That's not perfect pitch. That's Tom can pick up his bass in the middle of nowhere and tune it without a tuner, and it'll be
Wow.
perfect, you know, and that's always blowing me away. It's like, wow, how the hell do you do that? But it's just that's just the he has that ability. Dave is kind of like the same way with tempo. Like you tell him what's 120, he'll tell you exactly where 120 is.
Wow.
And it's just you know we used to play these tunes with that had these long samples in it, like brass section samples from one of
Hmm.
his records. It'd be like, like that, and it would have to be like a perfect tempo, and we didn't play to a click or anything. So, but Dave would just always start the tune, and by the time we got to the samples, it was always the perfect tempo. He always, knew exactly where it was. So it's like that tells me that tempo has a feel. Tempo has a feeling, just like pitch does. You know, I can I can remember pitches. That's
Hmm.
one thing I can do. A lot of people can't. But I can remember what a pitch sounds like. I can remember what an A sounds like, what a G sounds like. He can remember what tempos feel like, what exact tempos feel like. And some people are like that. He's got like perfect tempo. you um, and it's like a lot of drummers are like that. I think maybe it's just because it's part of their life.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
And I there's a whole other area that we haven't gone into, which is like Airto and Flora and all the Brazilian stuff.
Well, and that's a whole other kind of vibe and feel.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so would you there there's a sense of that Brazilian stuff is on top of the beat. Would that be accurate to say it feels like it's moving
Well,
ahead?
samba, yeah, in order to play samba really well, at least in my experience, yeah, you can't lay back like in jazz.
Mm.
You know, you'd be like if you're playing like you can't
Oh,
you can't swing. You have to play dooba 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 dot. Now you can sort of lay back and be easy in that time field, but you can't, like in jazz, you actually, in order to swing, you actually have to be a little bit behind the exact top. If you play right smack in the middle, it doesn't quite swing. It's interesting.
mm-hmm.
But with Brazilian music, you play a little bit more in the middle, but it has a different swing to it. The 16th notes are in a different sort of place. It took me a long time of playing with them to get it right. Saxophone players can get away with murder. You can just play jazz on everything, you know. But if you want to be a rhythm section player, you've got to really learn where the pocket is, where the groove is, you know. And so I used to play, like, we had a band called Fourth World.
Mm-hmm. I saw that
Yeah,
on your list there.
and that was basically me, Jose Neto, and Airto. That was basically the band, and Flora sang, you know, and played a little bit of percussion. But it was a quartet. But the nucleus of the band was Airto, Jose, and myself. And so I used to play, keys and key bass with Airto behind Jose's solos, you know. So I had to learn how to play a good samba, learn to, and make it swing the right way.
And Airto's sambas are phenomenal.
Of course. Yeah.
I remember him from the Chick Corea days, light as a feather, those,
Oh yeah.
those.
Well, that was not really, I mean, what he was playing was kind of traditional samba, but what Stanley was playing was fucking on Mars, she was completely all over the place. And so that's, in a way, that's kind of what made that unique. But you can't really call that samba because of what Stanley was doing. But I mean, it was fusion, and it was brilliant, and it was its own thing. So you have to appreciate it for its own thing. But no, there's no Brazilian player that's going to ask you to play like, is going to ask the bass player to play like Stanley Clarke did on that. Let's put it that way. It made it sound like that, and it was brilliant, and it created this whole genre of sort of Latin Brazilian jazz fusion.
Yeah, yeah,
and yeah, that was a groundbreaking record. Holy cow, And they were. That was one of the first records. It was, I think, it was the second record, but the of that original band with Joe Farrell, Stanley, and Chick and Airto and Flora. Flora told me that her and Airto and Dionne, who was a baby, and Stanley Clarke used to share a room. And Dionne would sleep in the drawer, and it was literally like that. They didn't have any money, They were recording, I think they recorded Light as a Feather in London while they were playing at Ronnie Scott's at the same time, and they very little rehearsal or anything. I think those all went down in like first takes,
Man.
Yeah. It was, they were just all such amazing musicians.
Well, and you mentioned Joe Farrell. That was another guy that I loved to listen to.
Oh, me too.
Man, yeah. So, I have
my flute playing is more like Joe Farrell than anybody else.
You think? Yeah. I mean, I'm not. It's hard for me to reckon. Like you probably could say, "Oh, David Sanborn has this sound," or that thing. Or Michael Brecker. Michael Brecker, I can tell. but I can't. There are certain aspects of people's playing other than I've been able to tune into your sax solos,
Mm-hmm.
and
Well,
so
that's what it is. You hear the personality in the playing. You
mm-hmm,
know, a lot of the sounds, especially like in smooth jazz. I mean, there were like in the '80s and '90s,
mm-hmm.
uh, there were like 10 or 12 guys that I could not tell the difference between any of them. You
Yeah.
know, because it's the way they had to, and I was one of them. You know what I mean? It was like
Mm-hmm.
the way that's the way you had to play. You had the metal Beechler mouthpiece, like Eric Marienthal and Dave
Mm-hmm.
Koz and all those guys, and you played that alto sound with those inflections, with the smooth jazz inflections. And it don't get me wrong, it's not easy. It's playing that style. It's in a way it's harder than jazz. Like making a smooth jazz record is much harder than making a jazz record. Because it requires so much more uh, you know perfection. You know what I mean? You have to get the inflections just right. Everything has to be exactly. You can't play a jazz lick where an R&B lick is required. You know what I mean? You have to put on a whole different skill set. you know people that sort of like snub the music might not necessarily know how difficult it is to produce a really good smooth jazz record. It takes a lot of skill, and the really good ones have really good players on them, you know,
Mm.
and there's really good production. I don't particularly like to listen to the music, but I can definitely appreciate it for what it is, and I have fun playing it.
So, do you know Dennis Moody?
Yeah, of course.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
So he goes, smooth jazz requires hair.
That sounds like something Dennis would say.
Yeah, because he was involved in the recording of that record that I never could pronounce the name of.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Live
And very plugged in.
That's right. Yeah, me and Dennis have been on the road a lot together, and he actually did some tours with Airto and Flora with me, and he started with. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis, but he started with Airto and Flora like back in the when Flora was with on the records she did with George Duke and
Yeah, I think
Columbia maybe or something like that. Yeah,
I think he mentioned that. We talked a little. I had Dennis on as an interview, and he talked a little bit about that.
Yeah.
But
he's been a sound man longer than I've been a musician.
And he's done so many guys. It's hard to keep it all on track. But this is what I say about Dennis: is almost every guest that I've had on from Los Angeles, he's photobombed. He's photobombed somehow. I can find him in a picture with almost every guest.
Well, you can certainly find him in some with me.
Exactly. So, all right. So a couple of people
it's 10 after 9 already.
Right. So we've been talking an hour and 10 minutes. And somebody said this needs a part 2.
Ah.
So, well, and here's the thing: we talked about a lot of stuff, but the really fascinating stuff was talking about how to stylistically play something, and I never even thought about the smooth jazz thing. And you're right, there was that time in the '90s when everything sounded the same, and if you didn't have any idea what was going on with that, you just go like, yeah, that sounds the same as that, and that sounds but having you tell about making it sound a certain way, I never even thought about that.
Oh yeah, it's and it has to be precise, which can drive you freaking nuts. You'll play the same lick over and over, till you get it just right. Now it's a little different because digital editing has gotten so good, and you can fix so many things. Like you don't even really have to play in tune anymore.
Right. So going back to way back when, especially when you would recorded with Airto and those, and even further back when you play a take and then you go, oh, that wasn't good. Okay, let's do another take, and you can do another take. These days, engineers and Dennis can attest to this. I'm sure there are those engineers that's fine. I'll fix it in post. or I'll fix it in the mix later. Or
The good ones, like Brian Bromberg is a really good one. He knows by the take what can be fixed and what can't. You know, he just has that. He's pretty amazing. Like I remember playing on one record that he was producing, and he's sitting there with a bass in his hand, going biggity 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 biggity, you know, doing his whatever he was doing, not plugged in, just because he likes to have a bass in his hand to, you know, keep his chops going, I guess. And he's doing that. He's talking to me, and he's listening to a take, somebody playing his. And he's talking to me, having a conversation. Oh no, do that again. It's like, you know,
man,
he knows what he can fix, he knows what he can't fix, and he knows what he doesn't want to have to fix. So and it's great working for him. It's like, and he doesn't mince words, you know. Even if you do something great, he'll go, yeah, that's cool. You know, it's no, man, that's fantastic. You know, you don't really, you know, he's not really that kind of, you know, because it's like, of course it's great. It has to be great. That's what it is. You know, thank you for doing your job. You know, you don't need to be, you know, like, you know, touted all the time. You know,
right. So what sort of strikes me is when you're at that level and you're playing and everything it's just expected. Of course it's fine. I don't need to tell you you're fine, because you know you're here with me.
Right. Exactly.
You know,
yeah.
So
that's kind of how it is. You know, Lorber's the same way. You know, you play a yeah, it's cool. Next.
So what's that? Yeah, you know.
I remember there's a story that Jeff will tell you. He was producing some guy, I won't mention the name, and I was playing, and I played a solo, and I guess it really knocked the guy out. And the guy goes, "Man, this solo is going to be played so much, man. It's going to change. It's going to change it's going to totally change your career." And I said, "Well, all I know is I got to be out of here in a half hour. So let's."
Can you just stop talking and let's move on?
Yeah, exactly. His bubble just kind of went, you know. It's like, that's fine, man. It's cool. It's all cool. I'm happy for you. Let's move on. You know?
So you know somebody's really good when you can just go, okay, that's fine. Now let me just get out of here. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I've started this record since this is in Zoom. I started recording it, and I've noticed that as we were watching, what people can hear is good, but the video might be a little choppy. So what I'm going to do is repost this so the video is clean and clear and not choppy. So it'll be easier to watch back.
Okay. Cool.
And you know, it's nice. Bernie Dressel tuned in, and Dennis Moody, of course, and you know, there's been a few other people. I'm trying to scroll through all the little comments here. Lee Durley.
You know who Lee is?
Yes, he sang on that big band record I was talking about.
Oh, okay, yeah. Hi, Lee, if he's still there.
Man, what a great guy Lee is.
Oh, he's a sweetheart. He's a sweetheart.
So because this is really fun, if you don't mind, I can have you back and we can talk more about this, because people find there are musicians and musician fans. You know, there isn't a lot of them, but it's like a jazz record, you know, where there are people that do like listening to the stories. And, you know, you talk about playing with Airto and, you know, and Jeff Lorber and that, and Dave Weckl. And, you know, there might not be hundreds of thousands, but there is people that will sit and listen to these conversations.
Sure.
You know, and they enjoy them. And more than anything, I enjoy them.
That's cool, man. It's been fun.
Yeah. And so I want to remind everybody, we've talked about some of your records. You can find Gary on his YouTube channel. And I've also had your website address up throughout the interview.
Oh, good.
And we've talked about, go to your Facebook page and see the videos we were talking about, how you produce those on your with Logic and
Final Cut Pro.
Final Cut Pro.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to take us out. Hey, how about if I play another thing off of originals?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Which one should we play?
They're all good.
Just pick one.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to play there.
That's my favorite tune on the record, actually.
How did I do that?
Because that's my favorite person on the planet, right there.